Hello. In today's slideshow, we're going to be looking at values and how they drive your behaviours through your beliefs. We've already talked a lot about the fact that values are a label given to the vague, unconsciously held concepts that define what is important to us. Values define why what we do. The truth seems to be that one of the fundamental keys to happiness is living your values. In a very real sense, your values act as a compass by which to navigate your life, and that is why we cover values before jumping into goal setting. Many people set goals first and end up achieving things they don't want. Setting goals in alignment with your values will allow them to become milestones on your journey through life rather than false destinations. However, that's all very nice, but recognizing the importance of values in driving our behavior and happiness does not tell you how to actually live in alignment with your values. After all, there are lots of things that can be important to us, and even looking at the words on the screen, you can see that these words are powerful. People fight and die and live their lives trying to achieve these values, but don't actually know what they mean. We all have our own deeply personal meaning, and for the majority of us, this is unconscious. We've already discussed that values are just vague concepts or labels we use to describe what is important to us, but they are not easy to define without a little more questioning. I like to think of values as an internal feeling which is tangled up with a series of beliefs, which are the things that actually define it. While the image on the screen represents a vague value surrounded by beliefs, personally, I think a better way to think of a value is a tangle of beliefs within and around a deep inner kinesthetic feeling that has sort of been frozen in time. Remember, values are what is really important to us, and so it's no surprise that they have a kinesthetic feeling associated with them. As we begin to question the value for the beliefs that define it, we kind of defrost the value into something which we can begin to define in more concrete terms, and then take action on. Two people who have the same value can have very different ways of actually manifesting it. This is because values, which can be unconscious and vague by nature, are linked to specific behaviours by beliefs. So before we go into how they are linked and how using them to find out what's valuable will you, let's look at a short diversion. Let's ask about beliefs. What exactly are beliefs? If someone were to ask you to define your beliefs, what would you say? When I ask questions on courses about people to what they understand beliefs are, I get all sorts of answers. To me, beliefs are generalizations about ourselves and the world around us. We make up our beliefs from our own experience or absorb them from other people, even from the media, either consciously or unconsciously. They are the things we hold to be true. In many ways, beliefs are possibility filters. If you honestly believe you can't achieve something, or it's not okay to do it, you will tend to resist and sabotage yourself, no matter how hard you try consciously to achieve it. If you do believe you can achieve something, this will switch on your mental and physical resources, and you'll begin to take increasing action towards achieving it. You might still need skills and time, but believing you can is the switch that will turn on those resources. Following on from the units on personal responsibility and models of the world, you now may be beginning to understand that though beliefs are very powerful, they are not real. They are just your beliefs, and other people may hold very different and equally valuable beliefs that they hold to be true. Recognizing this simple fact can be very empowering. It can also transform your ability to communicate and influence as you begin to recognize the importance of respecting other people's values and beliefs. If you barge into a conversation dismissing somebody else's beliefs or values, they'll begin to defend them, whether they want to help you or not, because deep down, unconsciously, you're disrespecting their model of the world. By learning to recognise and value, or at least respect their beliefs and values, you'll find it much more easy to actually communicate with them and perhaps suggest and influence them to do the things you want. Once again, this relates very much to improving relationships and creating successful alliances. But for now, let's drop back to your beliefs and values. We can come back to communication when we look at alliances later in the course. For any given value to manifest in the world of behaviours, it has to be linked through your beliefs surrounding that value. Your beliefs around any given value answer the questions: why is this important? What does this mean to you? How would you know you were achieving this? What would your evidence be? What causes this? What does this lead to? What could you have around this value? They actually tie into several ways. They tie into the causes of this value, the consequences of living up to this value, the evidence. How will they know that they're actually living up to this value, or how will you know? And how would they or you define this value? If you were to take the time to answer these questions for each of your values, you would be building a bridge between the vague, unconscious values that have been driving your behaviour, and how would you know if you were living this value? Incidentally, you may not know consciously yet, but your unconscious already knows, and it does its best to let you know with your emotions. If you're working in alignment and fulfilling your values, you'll generally feel pretty good. If you're acting out of alignment, you'll tend to feel bad. To recap, your values are the vague concepts that you hold at an unconscious level, and they bridge to observable behaviours through your beliefs. So how do you actually go about recognising beliefs? Well, you'll hear them in people's language, or you'll hear them in your own language, but they'll tend to have several structures. The two most common are A causes B, here, or A equals B. Examples of A leads to B or A causes B would be: if I always tell the truth, then people will like me. Freedom comes through struggle. I have to have children because it will fulfill me. In these instances, people are linking up one thing as causing another. If we keep seeing this in our lives, at some point our mind seems to link the two up and make them almost the same thing. So in this sort of situation, we'd have someone telling the truth means I'm a good person. Freedom is struggle. Children are fulfilling. The thing with these beliefs is none of them are actually true. But as you begin to recognize the structure of these beliefs, then you'll be able to decide whether they're useful or not, or be able to pace and then lead other people's beliefs and behaviours. People will often give you just a part of a belief. I can't do that. And you can simply get them to, or ask because, and they'll get the second half of the belief, because I can't do that because I haven't done the preparation yet. Another classic belief. So just question in order to get the underlying belief. Let's have a look at an example of how it could actually happen. Imagine two people who have the same value of security, and let's see how their belief structure could drive different behaviours around a given value. Imagine person A believes that security comes from being more powerful than the other people in their life, while person B believes that security comes from keeping quiet and not being noticed. Do you think that holding these two different belief structures around security would drive different behaviours? Which do you think is right? The truth is that both could be useful, and it only depends on the context. Standing up and fighting for your rights might be important in one situation, but then in other situations it might be more useful to keep quiet and bide your time. All I want you to do at the moment is to begin to listen for and get curious about your own values and beliefs, and to listen for those of the people around you who you come in contact with. We know that they are not true, whatever beliefs you hold. None of them are true. You learnt them as you were growing up, and the generalizations that you've grown to accept as true. One counterexample and the whole belief begins to fall down. So if you held, for a long time people held the belief that all swans were white. Soon as you see one black swan, which they do, I think they went to Australia, that belief no longer holds. The more important than are they true or not is how are they serving you. If they're useful, great. If they're not, what are you going to do about it? It's worth remembering this is an ongoing process, and if you remain curious about what's actually going on, what's important to you, and what you believe around that value, you're going to be making new, interesting distinctions over the weeks, months and years ahead. It's a lifelong journey of self-discovery, and a very rewarding one. The trick is to become curious and aware of what's going on in your own mind and your behaviours, and ask, is this really serving me? It may feel good in the moment, but if you took a step back, is that belief really supporting you? And we can look at how we will change them later on. So, your assignment for this week, if you choose to accept it, is to take your top 1 to 5 values and begin to define your beliefs about this by asking the questions we mentioned before. Why is this value important? What does this value actually mean to you if you're being honest with yourself? How would you know if you were achieving this value? What would your evidence be? What causes this value to come into being? And what does this value lead to? When could you have this value? What do you need for this value to be true in your life? What do you need to be happening? These questions are all listed in the PDF supporting this slideshow. So if you take your top 5 values and work through these questions, you begin to build very solid bridges through to understand your underlying driving behaviours and what's actually driving